Welcome to Light Talk with Jason and Jordan. I'm Jordan. To the right of me is Jason. And tonight, our guest, her name is Deborah. Deborah, would you like to say hi?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I
thank,
appreciate it.
thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you.
And
Thank you.
Jason, would you like to further introduce our guest?
Hi guys. So I met Deborah some years ago. Initially, I met her at a what I would guess I would describe as a meeting. That was I'm trying to remember if it was in Edmond, Oklahoma or Oklahoma City, but it was in Central Oklahoma.
Mhm.
And this is maybe about a month before we went out. Maybe had a C5 experience, maybe a few other one experiences.
Mhm.
But you are essentially what caught my initial interest was your experience, which I'm gonna let you explain your initial experience. Um, and One of the things I'd like to talk about sometimes I don't openly talk about is kind of like not an ability but a feeling. When I heard your story, I felt something inside of me, and I felt something like this is genuine, and there was more to this. And as you were telling your story, and I'm going to let you elaborate on that, of course, I saw some similarities between you and others who had similar experiences,
Mhm.
and I didn't know if at that time that you knew of those similarities. So.
No, I
Um,
did not.
it was incredible. So when I heard all this, I'm like, this is someone who's genuinely, in my opinion, wasn't making this up because they don't know about these other aspects of these other individuals. Um, but before we dive into that, Deborah, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm a registered nurse um, for over 30 years. Tells my age a little bit. But I've lived in Oklahoma since I was a kid. Um, but I was born in Northern California, close to Shasta, um, not far from Shasta Dam, the lake.
Interesting.
Um, so um, that's kind of who I am.
All right. Um, so leading into this experience, did you have any thoughts about this before this happened to you?
No, I'd actually forgotten. But when I was a kid, grade school, um, we got woken up, my whole family got woken up in the middle of the night by our neighbors who came to our house and saw a UFO and wanted us to go outside and see if we were seeing what they were seeing. And we did. It hovered in the sky for a while. It was oblong. And Of course, I had no clue what they were talking about because I believe I was in fourth grade, somewhere around there, third or fourth. Um, but I had forgotten about that experience until my family is the one that brought it up to me when I finally came forward to my parents. Um, which, after my experience that I had um, into around 217, um, it took me 2 years because it was very hard. My kids, um, who were mostly grown teenagers and adults, lived with me, and so they went through how because at first it was really traumatic for me, um, never having any kind of experience like that, and I'll get into it, but um, knew knew nothing about it. But my parents shared that story, and um, then I remembered it. And then my parents also shared that when they were in Shasta, in Northern California, they actually saw a UFO, and actually had the police had blocked off roads Um, but so they've had experiences as well. I was too young to know that. They were very accepting of the experience because they had seen a UFO twice, at least. Um, um, so, uh, but yeah.
I understand that. So can you please tell us in the best of your in the best of your ability what happened this faithful I'm assuming it happened at night or a day?
It
Any
did.
kind of
It happened in the middle of the night. I woke up because I felt my body completely just straight, um, being laid in my bed. And when I woke up, when I felt the indentation of the mattress, my body being laid on the mattress, and I opened my eyes and I saw three beings on the left side of my bed. Um, and I mean, it's absolutely terrifying if you to anybody that would go through this experience. Huge eyes, um, and the one that was farthest from me um, noticed that I was awake, and I heard in my head, "She's awake," and it they all looked at down at me, and the one closest to me like that was inches from my face, staring into my eyes. um, and I honestly believed that that was supposed to make me forget, but I closed them because it was terrifying, um, and um, kept my eyes closed for afraid to open them. When I opened them, they were gone. The room was dark again. When they were in the room, it was it was like the lights were on, and I could see them. Um, they were about 4 to 5 feet tall, um, and I was shaking. Immediately turned my bedside light on and just sat there terrified, waiting for my kids to wake up. And as soon as my daughter got up, I I asked her, I don't know why, but I was like, I need you to come look at my body because I wanted her to see if I had any kind of markings, anything that was unusual, and there were. On my left side, right below my elbow, I had three triangular dots, as well as um, just above my um, left knee. Um, and she took a picture of it, and because it was not where I could see it, and I just kind of sat down and just cried because that was even more validation that something really did happen to me. And it was very, very emotional. um I when I went to bed for probably weeks, um I was scared to turn the light off, and when I did, I would see orbs in my room, white, red orbs. And occasionally I still see the orbs in my room. Um, but I was scared to go to sleep. Uh, but it was probably, I can't remember if it was the next night, the night after I tried to turn the lights off, scared to go to sleep, and I noticed this mantis. I opened up my eyes, and this mantis being, I had never heard of a mantis being, was floating over my bed. And really, all I could see was from the torso up. And it was like a neon color, green and yellow. But it was giving me this peaceful feeling, telling me in my head that it was there to protect me and it was okay. And I actually reached my hand up to touch it, and it was translucent. My hand just went right through it. And I just felt like, okay, I can go to sleep because it's okay. I've got this thing protecting me from these beings coming back. But I can say I was scared for a long time. But I just felt like there was no way I was the only person that this happened to. And I started searching the internet, trying to find anything and everything that I could find. I found other people who had same experiences with the same markings that I did. And I really feel like the markings on my arm and leg was how they moved me to get me on my bed. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I think. But yeah, that was my experience, and I still, even though I studied it, I was still afraid to tell anybody outside of my immediate family, my kids who went through this with me.
How did they handle it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
They handled it well. They believed me, supported me, and just, yeah, they handled it well.
That's great.
So it took me 2 years I confided in my sister, and she told me, she was like, you need to talk to mom and dad. And I believe you, but you need to talk to mom and dad until tell them. So I talked to my parents, and that's when they told me they believed me and what they had seen when we were just babies, and Mount Shasta. And then my dad also told me an experience. He grew up in southern, eastern Oklahoma, and other people he knew that had seen UFOs. So that was validation on my part as well, of this experience. And even though I don't want to have those beings see them again in my bed bedroom, because it was frightening. But I think anybody who had never been exposed, didn't know anything about this kind of thing, would have been frightened and traumatized by that. but I now look at it as a blessing because it's totally changed my way of thinking, believing, and I mean, I was have been obsessed, kind of like um, how Close Encounters was, Richard Dreyfuss, of trying to find out everything that I can, and get into the community, talk to people, go to conferences, meet these people that are considered experts. And I've had the pleasure of being able to talk to a lot of them, and get validation from them as well.
Nice.
So, um, yeah. And then, going to the CE vibes, and having those experiences and being able to call them down. I mean, that's that's something. So,
It is pretty amazing.
mhm, yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Jordan. Sorry.
I was going to say, prior to that experience, were you open to extraterrestrials?
I hadn't really thought of it. One of the things, I mean, yeah, we have such a huge world out there, galaxies that are we have no clue of. There's no way we were the only planet that has life.
Right.
So, but you see televisions, you think of just little grays, think that's the only thing that's out there, and it's not. Um, so, um, so yeah, but it's totally changed me on religion, and being more open minded to everything that can happen. Um, I mean, I've had paranormal experiences pretty much all my life, um, and that was one of the things. After I had this experience, it was much easier for me to go to ghost hunts than it was to, um, go into the experience of ETs and that. Um, and actually became a paranormal investigator with the team, because I think it's all connected. Um, but but yeah.
Um, Before I ask any questions, or before I lead into some of the questions, I just want to thank you, first and foremost, for sharing like your experience and the feelings and thoughts, and kind of like the tribulations behind it, because I think that's important too to share with everybody, because it's a little different between me and Jordan, because
Oh,
we seek
you,
that. Oh, go ahead.
you can't see my text that I just got. Can you on your phone?
I
Oh,
didn't see
it
it.
went away. Okay, good.
Oh yeah, you're
All
okay.
good.
You're okay. Um, So there's a little difference between somebody like me and Jordan who were seeking this kind of thing, but it just kind of happened to you, which is
Hmm.
a whole other different kind of mindset and so on. So I just want to really want to thank you for sharing that, because I know that was really hard for you and possibly your family there for a while.
Hmm.
And just thank you for making that journey to here to where you're open to talk about it, because I know that could probably take somebody a few days, or it could take them a whole lifetime
Hmm.
before they explain to the world exactly what happened to them.
And
Um,
that's why I've come out with it and want to share my experience so that people know they're not alone. They're not crazy. These things these things are real. And they've been happening forever. I mean, so
Um, with that being said, how did this led to you being a MUFON investigator? Is that correct?
Hmm.
Can you elaborate on the process of that and how you can kind of came to do that?
I wanted to know what, because I didn't know what to do to, what their process was of collecting evidence, proving, um, to get evidence. And so I wanted answers. Um, and um, so that's why I wanted to be an investigator. And I got a lot of those answers of what a person should do if they're having experiences. And I wanted to share that with people, so that they know what the process is, to um, collect evidence. So
Would you care to elaborate on that a little bit more?
sure. Um, and I've talked to, like Katie Page. She's uh, the MUFON, the head of MUFON in Colorado, and she does. She's had a lot of experience, and she's told me, how MUFON, she couldn't share what they've found, but one of the first most important things that you should do is write everything down, everything that you remember, the time, the date, everything. And then, um, you want to, if you're wearing clothing, collect your clothing, put it in a paper bag. Just the way as a when I was ER nurse, when somebody has like a sexual assault, you go through the evidence collecting. You collect, your clothing in a paper bag, put it up. Look at your body with a, black light, because, and you're looking for things that glow, because they have found, substance on people's bodies, um, that glows. Um, and you want to swab that. You also want to look wherever this happened. And a lot of times they happen in people's cars where they have missing time, or it's like me in their bedroom. Look around that site with a black light. Um, and after this, they also recommended having, a tri-field meter, that, registers, any kind of radiation, any, that. So I bought one of those, um, but and then you want to give that to MUFON so that they can send off what you've collected, and make a report of that. Um, and that's the main things that people need to do. Documentation, everything, what you remember, any experiences after, um, after my experiences during the night, I had fragmented memories of being on a ship, um, and which were even more terrifying, I think, than seeing the three beings, in in my room. Um, but um, yeah,
Would you care to
but
share?
mainly people need to know they are not alone. There are
For
so
sure.
many people that have these kinds of experiences. And I've talked to a lot of people, when I go to these conventions, and even when we've done paranormal investigations, people who are having things happen in their house, um, one of the questions that I ask of people, what was your first paranormal experience that you ever remember happening? And the majority of people tell me they saw shadow beings, um, and basically the Hat Man, and that's worldwide. I've talked to people from all over the world, and it's a common thing, which I call them the Watchers, because what they seem to do is just stand in the room and you see them. Most of the time, it's at night, but you can also see them during the daytime. Um, uh, I still see them um, in my house, and then I sage it. Um, but the first Hat Man that I saw, I was probably 4 when I saw him, and people see them as some people see a fedora. They're wearing a fedora hat. Other people see a top hat, which is what I saw. Other people see like they're hooded. They're wearing a hood. But that's a very common thing, and it's very common in people that have had abduction experiences. So
Awesome. Thank you for sharing all that. Now, I'm curious, you mentioned fragment of memories. Is there
mhm.
any pieces of that that you'd care to share?
Yeah, so I remember being on um, a ship that was huge, um, and with a bunch of people, and we were being um, pushed into just a more narrow of an area to make us closer to being one by one, just the way cattle are. And I could remember being just shaking like my bones were going to come out of my body. I was so scared. I saw what looked like drones, um, when some people in front of me would stop because they didn't want to go forward. And it was like they shocked them with a, a laser,
Something.
something that came out of it. And they were just in the air, making sure we were like being herded into this area. Um, and after that, I don't know what happened. Um, so
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
I kind of back few minutes ago. So with the kind of like the impending quote unquote disclosure situation happening, what's going to be is MUFON's directive still going to be data collection and dissemination, or what is that going to look like? Uh,
you know, I think move on is, I mean, it's, they say it's not working for the government, but I believe they're still working for the government. As you know, that started out as Blue Book to, they said the story was to investigate, but it was really just to explain away, lie to the people what what it was. But um, um, Hynek became a believer um, after he left that. Um, and his son, Paul Hynek, is continuing the work of disclosure um, with that. So, but I think they're collecting more. information for the government. But they do share things like in 2020, we had cattle mutilations down in Lawton that couldn't be explained. Around the same time, they were having multiple in Texas. So those kinds of things are still going on. So
Um, one of those things about people fundamentally change in so many different ways after these experiences. Did
mhm.
you lean to anything esoteric like Reiki healing or learning into anything about metaphysical?
Yes, yes, I did. I'm a huge believer of that. Um, you know, yeah, I that's what I believe in now. That there's a power out there that we can just reach up to and um, that it's healing. And I can tell you an experience, and this made me a believer of the power of believing something. So I'm anaphylactic to bees, and always had to go to the hospital, get epi shots. When I was about 9 years old, I got stung by a bee, and my parents. I grew up in Pentecostal church, very super religious, fundamental. And I was helping my mother um, uh, do something with her for her Sunday school class, collecting things. And I love to walk around barefooted because I love the feel of the ground on my feet. Um, and I was stung by a bee, and my mom was like, "We got to take you to the hospital." And I said, "No, I believe God will heal me." And she was scared because I've had these experiences, and I just sat at myself looking in the mirror and saying, God's going to heal me. God's going to heal me. I don't have to go to the ER. I'm going to be healed. I didn't have to go to the hospital. I was good.
Nice.
Never didn't have it, didn't even come out with a rash. Um, Now, the next time I was stung, I was scared and was like, "Mom, you got to take me to the hospital." And she was like, "No, you're not allergic anymore. You'll be fine." And my throat pretty much closed up
Oof.
because I didn't believe that I would be okay. That's how nobody could change my mind about that. So that tells me the power of belief, what it can do for our bodies.
It's really amazing
That's
how
powerful.
all that plays out, you know.
Yeah, and I mean I'm a nurse, so people die from anaphylactic shock. So
Yeah, I mean, even a quick note between me and Jordan. When he's done sessions with me, without me believing in his ability to help me out, it would not have helped me. And just a little tidbit in the in some of the QHHT and energy healing, if you want to call it
mhm.
that. He's helped me a lot.
I have a friend who's on my paranormal team who does energy healing, and he's awesome. So um, yeah.
To please tell us more about your paranormal team, if you don't mind me asking.
No, so it's Oklahoma Paranormal Association, and I joined them in 2019. I've been with the team since then. We have done paracons, I've spoke at them 2 times as telling my experience, and we get pretty good crowds when we have them. We get some celebrities that come in and help us. The rape chasers, uh, they come and help us every time. We've had some of the team from Ghost Hunters come. We've had more, but we've done public investigations where people have paid and we go in and into haunted locations and use our equipment, teach people how to do it, and let them have the experience, learn how to do it. We get requests from people that are needing help, and we will go in and help them investigate. And we've had some very interesting cases.
Are there any that you could share with us?
Yeah, I'll share one. So I like to go in completely blind, not knowing anything other than an address of where we go. And sometimes I start getting information before I even get there. I don't know how it happens, but I do. And so we went into one house, and it was teenage boy, a daughter, and a mom that was there at the house. And so what we do is walk through the house. We take a piece of paper, any feelings, images that I see in my head, I write down any feelings as I'm going through the house. And this one that I'm telling you about, I walked into the boys' room and I just felt, I saw this image in my head of what looked like a hag, just floating over the bed. And it was the boys' room. And I felt like she was choking him. And then I walked down the hall, went into the bathroom, and felt like in my head, I saw like drawers being opened, things being moved in the bathroom. Then I walked into the master bedroom, and I just felt like this person, this being, this old woman was angry in that room. She walked from the door to the bathroom and just kept pacing, angry. Didn't go close to the bed. And so I walked out and I sat down and I said, I don't know how to say this, so I'm just going to come out and say it. I asked the boy, I said, have you had anybody felt choking you in your bed? And when I said that, I saw, the mom leaned back and the boy just had this shocked look in his face, put his head in his hands, and almost cried. And our case manager, who knows everything but doesn't tell us anything, was just, I mean, he leaned back and he's like, I didn't tell anybody anything that was happening. And then I said, um, the next thing I'm going to tell you is what I saw in the bathroom. And I said, the most in the bathroom, in the master bedroom, this is what I'm seeing. But this like hag being is like really angry, and just pacing. And they all just seemed shocked. And the boy told me, yes, I've been being choked in my room like I couldn't breathe, and was even wearing started wearing a cross, and had that pulled. Um, and mom said that he had even been sleeping in her bed with her because of these experiences, and that she had gone around her bed and demanded that this being could not come close to her bed. Um, uh, and even staged around the bed. And this kid has not been sleeping in his bed at all. He's been sleeping with mom because of these experiences. So we did some cleansing. And I know that my case manager followed them for a while, checking on them. And they didn't have any more experiences. But that's how we approach things. There was another one that we did in Purcell that we were called to. And this one, they had called the police multiple times because they were hearing voices, scratching. They could even hear something banging on the outside of their house, and called the police. And the police would even come out, and there were times when all around the house was muddy from rain, no prints in where they could see. We walked into that house, and of course I didn't know anything. Walked in the house and went in one of the bedrooms, and there was a old mirror, old-fashioned mirror, like just standing against the wall. And I saw somebody playing with a Ouija board that's right in front of the mirror. Walked through the rest of the house, came out to where the mom and the two girls were, and I said, who had a Ouija board in that room? And the girls were like, we did. And I said, you let something through, and especially the mirror there, you just opened up a portal. And that's what I felt like was happening. We were there for a couple of more hours, and me and a team member were in a very back room, totally away from everybody else, where we couldn't hear anything. And we heard the voice, we heard scratching. Couldn't tell where it was coming from. It was in the room, but we couldn't tell where it was coming from. And then we heard the voice of one of our teammates who wasn't even anywhere around. And it was a doppelganger voice is what we heard. Um, we we did a cleansing in that house, and they ended up asking us to take the mirror out of their house. Um, so that was another case that we did. I love going on private investigations in homes. So right, I enjoy it all, but I enjoy the private investigations. Um, but even people at Skinwalker Ranch have talked about working with um, Bob Bigelow when he owned it, and people had experiences like that, um, and even after they left, still had those. It followed them, so they call it the hitchhiker effect. Um, so I believe in dimensional beings. I think that um, a lot of what we see it's dimensional. Um, I've talked to a lot of people that does lectures that are famous in the UFO world, and um, they say the exact same thing, that paranormal experiences go along right with um, the UFO world. Um, so
Thank you for sharing all that. Now I'm curious, have you always been really intuitive? I know what you're saying here, you kind of see what happened. I'm wondering if that kind of started up maybe around the time of the abduction or when you started doing the investigations, or has it always been there?
it's always been there, um, of being very intuitive. Um, and when I first became a nurse, I became a nurse in '91, went straight into ICU. I couldn't tell you how many experiences I had paranormally, um, as an ICU nurse. You have, you see a lot of death, so you're there when they're dying. Um, I can tell you one experience that I had. I had a patient that was dying that was a DNR, do not resuscitate, and it was in the middle of the night. And I don't like my patients ever. I would never let them die alone. I It's would never happen. Um, and so me and another nurse who was very Catholic was on the other side of the bed, and I was waiting for the family to get there, and I was holding his hand. And this man, his heart rate would drop down into 30s. He would have some long pauses where it wouldn't beat, and then it would pick up again. And when hit my other nurse across from me asked him, "What are you seeing?" Because he would he was still fairly alert for all of this. He was going in and out of consciousness. And when she said that, I was like, stop. Do not ask him those questions again. And I felt this being, or I thought the family had got there, hug me. And this person was tall. It was like the shoulder. I mean, their arm went completely around me, and I heard "thank you," and I actually stepped away from the patient thinking, oh, the family's here. And I honestly couldn't tell if it was, if I thought I audibly heard it. And um, there was nobody there. And I did a complete look around, and the other nurse looked at me and she was like, "You look like you've seen a ghost." And I said, "Who is just here?" And she was like, "Nobody." And I said, "No, somebody was just here. They hugged me." Um, and the gentleman in the bed, the patient, said, "My angel." Um, Makes me emotional um, to think about it. Um, but it wasn't too much longer that the family got there. But that one really sticks with me because it was my first real experience of having something like that happen um, to me that um, just really affected me. So, you know, I I don't know who it was or what it was, but I physically felt it, heard it. Um, so I don't know. Um, I've most ICU nurses we've all talked about things that we've seen, and you become a believer in the paranormal because we see so much of it. I've had patients, many patients on life support, intubated, on cardiopulmonary bypass, totally unconscious. Machines are keeping them alive. Um, and they're waiting for all their family to get there. And when the family gets there and says, it's okay for you to go, then they die. Um, but they hang on until people get there that they love. Um, and even though that they would be, non-responsive, I believe the spirit is still there and can hear, believe what's going on. And that's what I tell families. Um, and I mean, I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen that.
Thank you very much for sharing all that. It's really interesting. I didn't realize there was so much paranormal activity at hospitals like that.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah. Um,
People
ah,
see ghosts. I mean, it's not uncommon to see ghosts. Um, and even um, we've had patients um, that other nurses have talked about. The friends of mine have talked about, and even staff members um, of seeing a ghost, and um, so and people aren't scared. I mean, because it's so common.
yeah. I work in healthcare also, and being on the road, I've been in multiple facilities, and it's not uncommon for like a room or a certain area to have a story or situation. There's one I recall where it was at night that happened, where they did a lot of the pediatric procedures, that they would hear little laughters and little noises that would kind of
Mm-hmm.
freak you out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm trying to think of another area. In that same room, I swore I believe I had an odd experience where I thought I saw a face kind of close by. It was kind of phased in and out, but it was kind of
Mhm.
hard to tell, and it was so quick. It was kind of hard to get a good glance at exactly what I was looking at. But it's not uncommon, that's for sure, in healthcare.
Mhm.
So, and I'm pretty sure in the ER and the ICU, I work in the cath lab, so you
You,
can imagine.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I have so much evidence. I've gone several times to a abandoned hospitals are my favorite places to go to investigate because you get so much activity, and I love getting EVPs. Um, I I was I have one recording where as soon as the recording starts, um, you can hear a woman say, "Help me," um, and none of us heard it, but yet it was captured. Um, I've got numerous experiences of EVPs. I've got pictures of um, ghosts that you can see that nobody, nobody was there. Take and what we tell people when you take a picture, take 3 pictures in a session, and usually one of them is one that's going to show if it's going to show something. I have one picture that I took at the Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, where you can see a man. He has a beard with black suspenders, um, and nobody was there. Nobody, um, and it's a very clear picture. You can still see through it, um, translucent, but you can see it.
It's definitely some neat stuff there. Now I'm curious, and I hate to bring us back to kind of where we started, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious with the three beings, can you describe them a little bit more? I know you said big eyes, but
Yeah. Um, they weren't gray. They were more of a brownish, very long, skinny faces. Um, and I've seen pictures since then of it, um, but just huge black eyes. I mean, um, but they were more of a brownish green. But not not the typical drawing that you see of um, them. Um, so um, I've never seen anything um, like that until starting doing a lot of research, trying to find out, and I found one. I found pictures of what they look like. Just very long faces, and it was scary. Um, but
Have you ever contemplated? Because it depends on the psychology of the person, the situation, and it was obviously a very frightening situation. Did you ever at one point consider doing a regression hypnosis to figure out the whole to kind of piece together everything?
no, I've never done that. Um, um, and to be honest, I don't know if I want to remember anymore. um, but one of the interesting things that um, Linda Moulton Howe, brought up in one of her podcasts that the Greys and the Mantis beings work together. And that just kind of blew my mind because that's what I saw. You know, the alien that I saw at my bedside, completely frightened me. But the mantis being, I felt like it was there to protect me, and I was calm, and I could feel like love, and I wasn't scared of it. A couple of years ago, I had the pleasure of talking to Terry Lovelace. And if you don't know his story, I'm sure you guys do, but at Devil's Den in Arkansas, him and a friend was abducted. And it was very frightening for him and gave him a lot of PTSD about it. And actually, the military, he was in the military at the time, and they studied him and actually separated the person who his friend who he'd gone on a trip with, that both had this experience. He never saw him again and wouldn't have anything to do with him. But when I talked to Terry, I told him of my experience. And I mean, just the look of recognition in his face, he was like, me too. And he said, I had orbs in my room and still see them from time to time. And he actually had an implant put in his leg. And he has x-rays of it. And you can see it looks like a little computer chip. And Ben Hansen did a documentary on all of that, and it's on Discovery. And he shows all of that. And I talked to Ben first before I talked to Terry, and I told Ben my story. And he told me, he said, you need to talk to Terry. Make sure you talk to Terry about it, because I didn't know Terry's story. And Ben knew he had the same experiences that I did. But one of the things Ben told me that didn't make it into the episode that he did, and he said, when you're working for a company like that, you don't have any control over what gets edited out or put in. And he said, I was really unhappy that they did this, but he said, we're the implant. Terry had the implant. He took a magnet on a string and held it kind of a few inches away from where Terry's implant was, and it actually repelled the magnet. But Terry said that he tried for years to get somebody to take it out because he wanted it studied, and nobody would take it out in the US. So he was going to go overseas, made arrangements, and when he had an x-ray, the implant was gone. So they didn't want that implant being studied, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
Well, if you ever decide you do want to have a regression, definitely let me know. I'd be happy to do sessions for you. No cost, of
Okay.
course. It's one of those things where if seeing that's going to traumatize you, your higher self's not going to make you go through that again.
Okay.
Where the gold is near the end of the session, I bring through your higher self and we have a conversation. Um, and with that, you can write down any questions you have, or if you want to ask any questions about that, where we could find directly from your higher self as much information as you want about it.
Okay. Um, I may eventually take you up on that.
Awesome. And I do want to add as well that the mantis beings are awesome. I had a session where one came in to help heal the client because it was a bit more than their higher self was able to handle on their own. And that was my first interaction with them before, and it was pretty amazing.
It's I mean, I felt love with it. Um, and like I said, I've never even heard of a mantis being since then. Um, and it's it's kind of funny how our brain works, because my team leader, uh, Tanya, she had a pile of stickers, and she was like, because I put stuff like that on my paranormal equipment because I've spent a lot of money on those that. Um, but she was like, pick out one of these stickers, uh, for you. And I went through them, and I found one that had an alien face on it that was pink. Um, and it wasn't till several months later that I was looking at it and realized there's a mantis being in that alien face.
That's awesome.
Like,
That's weird.
I didn't see it until, you know, um, so
That's really cool.
Um, so with your paranormal investigations, what is something that you could share, or I guess the word is like, what outside of UFOs and ghosts does your team also investigate?
that's what we've only done. Now, we've talked about um, doing um, things in that UFO part, but all I've done with that as far as going out is the CE5s. Um, and I've tried to get other people to come with me because I love doing that. Um, so um, and it's pretty rare that we don't see things when we do the meditations and stuff. So
Yeah. What are your when did you first hear about CE5? Because your experience was probably a little bit before the mainstream heard about it. What were your initial thoughts?
no, no, I didn't know anything about it until I went to our meetup. And like I said, it took me 2 years, even though, you know, I joined Tracy's group. Um, it took me 2 years to get the courage to go to my meeting. And even when I went there, I was terrified. Um, and that has been um, the best thing that's happened to me, is finding like-minded people that have had these kinds of experiences. And I think the world needs to know more. And, you know, it's in the news now. So more people are coming out with it. And I don't know if you have seen the new show that's come out, The Age of Disclosure, where it's on that Amazon Prime. Um, but it's only about high level officials, people in our government coming, doing interviews and talking about things, um, UFOs, and so um, yeah, I want to get more people involved, um, because it's an amazing group.
Yeah, I mean, we love C5. Go ahead, Jordan.
I was going to say we definitely feel the same way, and that's, a big reason why Jason and I are doing this to offer people a platform that, can share their stories. And I love that you came on and did that. Um, I do have one more question, but I'll let Jason go first.
Okay. So, this is kind of like a compounded question. Um, so we're gonna have this. I keep air quoting because I don't know the extent of it. We're gonna have this disclosure. Um, but I don't. In my heart, I don't feel it's gonna be a full disclosure because I don't think our society is on that level yet. In
Yep.
your opinion, now, of course, I don't know. And we all don't know anything. What are like the main things that they wouldn't disclose to the public because just it's possibly too much?
I think they're afraid of the financial aspect. Religion has such a hold on, and I'm talking about um, Christianity. Even though in the Bible there's a lot of talk about what they describe is UFOs. Um, we have cave we have paintings from that are on rocks. We Even Napoleon wrote in his diary of seeing this orb of light brighter than the moon come out of the sky and then go back up. And he felt like it was a positive omen that he was going to win his battle. Even Christopher Columbus wrote in his stuff of seeing the same thing. Um, we have, all these paintings that were done showing UFOs. And so, um, yeah, it's there. And I feel like they were telling us something, but I believe that the Catholic Church has hidden a lot of things because that's control for them. Um, and then you have Christians. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene says that she believes aliens are fallen angels. So um, I I think disclosure is really going to come from the people rather than the government.
100%. I'd just like to add, they've always been here,
Mm-hmm.
just as you just described there. Now I'm curious, oh golly, I just lost my thoughts. Oh shoot, it'll come back to me.
I
Sorry
do that
about
all the time.
that.
Man. Um, I got like a general question. Um, just on a personal level, what's driving Deborah today? Like, what are the things what are your projects you're working on that you're working on right now, my friend?
I don't have anything other than I'm. I mean, I've got a conference. I go every year to the Ozark UFO conference um, in April. So I'm looking forward to doing that, um, talking to those people. And so that's my next thing that I have coming up. But just continuing to do research. Um, I love doing research on ancient technology, the Sumerians, and because I think the Sumerians were the first ones to write about this stuff, and um, I feel like they were aliens that Enlil and Enki. Uh, so um,
Interesting. There was always one question. It was a very strange question because of the other similarities you have with other abductees. Are you by any chance, and you would know this because you're RN, are you a RH negative blood type?
I am.
I knew it,
Um,
dude. I knew
and and
it.
I will tell you in my research, this is what I found. Um, Only 10% of the world is RH negative. They have an increase in psychic abilities, being intuitive. A lot of them have red hair. I have a lot of red hair in my family. My grandson's redheaded. They have a lower body temperature. Sometimes they have extra vertebrae, um, predominantly blue and green eyes, and they're of German descent. I am too. Um, and many of them report seeing orbs, having paranormal experiences, seeing objects move, um, people reporting shadow beings. Um, so, vivid dreams, unusual markings on the body, feelings of being watched, headache, dizziness, tinnitus, missing time. Um, so I don't. I'm sure y'all are aware of Missing 411, David Politis. He's done several documentaries, and it wasn't until he did his 411, the UFO connection, because he had always had, I've seen him in interviews, said people had tried to ask him about the UFO connection, and he would never commit. He wanted to give people the information and for them to decide until, and he's a MUFON. He's in MUFON as well. Um, until his last documentary, he finally came out and said that he believes. And he's come up with these same in his research, people that have gone missing, um, those same, what I told you, German descent, all of that. So, um, yeah.
Yeah, I knew that right away when you had initially told the story. I was like, I'm looking at you, and I'm like, this lady has the physical appearances and everything, and the story's going along, and I'm like, don't ask her yet. I'm like, wait till a few years later. It's like, okay, hey, what's your blood type by any chance? Because
Yep.
I was like, I knew that was the final piece where I needed to finally. You have no idea. I know it's such an odd question, but it really fit a final piece for me.
And when you talk to a lot of people, that's what they say. So it fits.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm curious. I know you mentioned how traumatic the abduction was there. It's totally understandable with what you experienced. And it kind of took you a couple years before you could open up and talk about it. As
Mm-hmm.
you spoke about it, do you feel like that helped heal any of the trauma?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, and you know, like like I said, being around other people and and finding out their experiences, you don't feel alone. And that's why I've come forward, um, because I don't want people to feel alone. I think it's an important message to people, and you don't have to have an abduction experience, to get in this, because um, meditating, and I mean, it just changes how you feel about things. Um, so
Now, did that happen here in Oklahoma?
mhm,
Okay.
yep, yep, it did.
Uh,
And one of the things that Katie Page told me, um, is a lot of this stuff happens close to military bases. Um, and what is Oklahoma? We have three. So, I mean,
And what year was it when that happened, if you don't mind me asking?
217.
Okay. Interesting.
Now, with some of these experiences are very familial. I know that your parents had their two experiences. Do they ever have feelings in their? Do they ever even kind of entertain the idea that they've had their own abduction experiences, but have just been blocked off?
Some missing time. There's some things when they saw the UFO, um, they had some missing time. Um, and my sister, that after I came forward, um, she 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 came along the ride with me. She's also on our paranormal team. She goes to the UFO conferences with me now. Now, my first one that I went to Alien Con down in 2019 when they had it in Dallas. Um, she didn't go with me then, um, but she shared experiences, and I hope she doesn't mind me talking about this. Um, but she doesn't have any seeing. She saw a different being. Um, she saw something that was translucent, um, like a predator. If you've ever watched the Predator movie, how you see, that's what she saw. I will tell you an experience that we both had at the same time in a hotel. It was when one of the conferences, Paracons, that we had. It was in Blackwell, Oklahoma, and during the night, uh, she woke up and felt like something was holding her down, and she had like a netting around her, and she could look around the room. She couldn't move, um, and when she finally was able to move, she was so scared she woke up, or she sat on the side of the bed and started saying something to me, and it woke me up, and I still half asleep, but I could feel something stroking my face. Um, so she kind of felt like that experience happened to her because I was there. Um, and it was like holding her down. I mean, all I remember is feeling that stroking. Um, so it's paranormal, but I don't know what it was. So
so strange.
Hmm.
I've never experienced like physical, except for Halloween. One time I did C5 in my backyard, and I felt some type of being touch my leg, but nothing I didn't invite. I know
Hmm.
that's a whole other game. Um, Back to CE5, like sometimes it's so rare to find anybody else who's like extremely passionate about it. What do you think is going to take for to get people really to kind of like get and going and doing this? Because I've thought about so many strategies and ultimately it kind of leads to like the person's interest. So it's like how do we get people interested in it? And I was curious what your thoughts were.
I think getting in the word out, doing what you're doing, doing podcasts, just getting the information out, and I'm hoping with everything that's in the news and people coming forward that we've had um, people come forward like Ryan Graves, um, people that are respected. Um, More people are talking about it, and so I'm hoping that once you have an awakening, and that's all I can see it as. Most people are asleep. They're not aware of anything that's going on that's paranormal or having an open mind. But once they open their mind, they have experience. You can't help but see the experience. You're awake um, to, I feel like, the real world.
I think so many more people have had experiences, just like kind of what you stated before when you were younger. You kind of blocked out that memory, and
Mm-hmm.
then when it was spoken about, it all came back to you. But I think a lot of people just block stuff like that out and go
Mm-hmm.
on, you know.
Yeah. It's I just want to reiterate again, like I mentioned earlier, it's so powerful, not just in what you said, but in how you said it, because you can just tell what it took you through. Um, I had my few years, but it was mostly induced to my need for acceptance, or to validation of the story. And I don't know if you went through that too, where you needed that finally, where that was finally a point where I don't know if that was a thing, if that's normal or not. You know,
I think it is. We're so conditioned, from the time we especially start school. And I think religion really um, is conditioning. Um, and, like my sister had a much harder time of of accepting um, that because, we're told none of this stuff is real. And if you experience it, it's the devil, it's demonic, and it's not. I mean, I do believe that there are bad beings out there, just like people. There are bad people out there. There's good ones. Um, but I can't explain it. Just once you're awake, you you don't see anything else.
I think we're kind of at the beginning of what you were describing there, where, basically we're told there's no such thing as ETs, and now
Hmm.
it's in the news. Well, if they
Hmm.
lied about that, what else was lied about? Really just
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, um, I if you look through history, there's a lot of evidence, and one of the things the Nazis they
with the bell.
they were looking for this stuff. I mean, hell, they built the Hannibal in 1939. They had a flying craft. Um, so you can look on YouTube and
Yeah, there's
see
videos.
that. Yeah, those that's real. Um, I think that our government is much more advanced um, because they've, like Dr. Greer says, they've reversed engineered a lot of things. They want to keep stuff classified. Um, but um, they can't anymore. There's too many people that are having experiences that are speaking up, and
Yeah, the genie's definitely out of the bottle.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good, yeah.
The thing that disturbs me is the possibility, as far as the level of technologies is, and it would affect us, economically speaking, and so on, and
hmm
socially. Are the healing technologies? That's kind of upsetting. To believe that that's being kept from society.
They,
Besides the energy stuff, go ahead.
yeah, they want to keep us sick. The pharmaceutical industry, um, they want us sick um, because it's very profitable. That's so.
Yeah. You know, back to earlier about the kind of like the mindset and the whole thing about the initial experiences. I'll share one little tidbit. After my initial experiences, it was on my mind every moment of every day for at least 2 years.
hmm
Because even when you're talking about it or trying to iterate to somebody or something, it's still you're still kind of wrapping around what just happened, even though
hmm
it's kind of back to back to back. And
hmm
I wonder, is that a normal is that like a normal like PTSD kind of situation where you're just kind of like replaying something over and over again because your reality had just changed? I just kind of thought
Yeah,
about this.
yeah. I've talked to quite a few people that are spokespeople that have been on TV and speakers, and um, I've seen people cry telling their experience and get emotional. Um, that there's there's been a few times coming back from the conference in Eureka Springs that my sister has had to hear me cry for quite a while because the hearing other people talk about it and being up there and crying about their experiences because you know but they're standing up there and they're sharing it. So I mean it is emotional. It affects you when you have something like that that you never thought was possible. Um, so
What I find really sad about it is that in an odd way, it feels like there's like a level attachment of shame in a way about it.
absolutely, yeah. Um, I yeah, I did another podcast that somebody had asked me to be on, and they brought that up. That and it was right after the first time that I did a um, got up in front of people and shared in my experience, and um, that's one of the things that they commented on. It was like, you know, there was some of that because you're hesitant to share that because you don't want people to think you're crazy. Because, I mean, that's Blue Book, that's what they tried to do. And that's what the government tried to tell people is add this shame to it because, you know, discredit people. But yeah, I think it's hard. I'm not ashamed of it anymore. Um, so
That was a big part. To elaborate on that, that was a big part for me to bring my wife and kids to show them the phenomenon and how to engage with it.
mhm,
Um, because I didn't want, I didn't at that time, I didn't really care as much about the outside world as much, but I wanted the people that knew me the best to know that I
mhm,
wasn't crazy. So
yeah,
that was about a month or so where I couldn't quite prove it yet, and then finally
mhm.
when I could, that was a huge weight off my shoulder.
It,
But that was
yeah,
like a weird dynamic where I'm very proud of the situation, and it makes and it breaks my heart because other people they have situations not so lucky.
mhm. But I think most people once they get to the point that they're willing to share their story, even though it can be very emotional for them, because it changes people's lives. Um, some people have gotten divorced because it totally impacts the way you're thinking and your life, and so it is an emotional thing.
When I first met my wife, I think 1 to 2 weeks in was a night that I was going to go hang out with Jason. And, that was one of my first questions, like, hey, you want to go out in the woods in the middle of nowhere, look at the sky and see if we can find some ETs? And I knew right then she was the one.
Man, that I wasn't at that point in my relationship early on. I was like, oh no, man, this is crazy, dude. Like, do not ask her yet, man, to go with you.
Nah, we had to get it out of the way.
Yeah,
Why get down the
yeah,
road and then have it be a
yeah,
problem? So
man.
that was awesome.
Oh man.
So I'm curious, you mentioned the church in control, but also earlier in your story that uh, when you had the experience that you shared, that it changed your beliefs, not just general beliefs, but on religion as well. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
um, I don't believe in Christianity. I I do believe the Bible somewhat, um, but in my research, I found out um, that Constantine is the one who actually started the church and took over and made religious holidays blended with what was pagan holidays, um, as a way of control. And then the Roman Church tried to take over, um, conquer every aspect everywhere that they went, um, and um, you know who knows what the Vatican has, because they hoard stuff that they don't let anybody know, and um, they've decided what's going to go into the Bible and what's not. And what I found was interesting is they have one of the biggest telescopes in, I believe it's Arizona,
Yes,
that is
I've seen that.
towards the sky. So why would they be invested in that? Um, so
Very good question.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stories. Those are I can't remember. There was a story about Pope meeting an ET on the on one of the lawns in the Vatican, and it's pretty cool. I can't wait till those files are open, but I don't think we'll see those in our lifetime.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so this is before we close this up here in a little bit, but are there any like other subjects? Because I know sometimes I'll kind of like I'll kind of go over to your Facebook. Is there any other subjects down the road that you'd like to cover and come back on about? Because I know that you're kind of like really adamant about some of the changes with the professional stuff going on, which I didn't even think about, but those changes will affect a lot of people in our country and our society, you know. And I was
Hmm.
curious if you'd like to come on and talk about that down the road.
Um, sure.
All right,
I'm
cool,
open to talk to y'all at any time.
sweet, sweet,
Awesome.
sweet. Um, Is there a paradigm of kind of like the whole UFO metaphysical stuff that you're interested in but just haven't like peeked into yet? Like are you like really into like perhaps like remote viewing by any chance?
Yes. I've actually studied that. Um, and I can I've done fairly well. So Billy Carson has a TV app where he has a lot of stuff. I don't know if you've seen it, but um, he in one of his things he teaches remote viewing, and so I sat there and I went through um, all of the sessions that he had, and and then a couple of years ago, they had a person that was a remote viewer, and so she had a picture, and she didn't tell us anything. She wanted us just to draw what was. We meditated a little bit to get our mind at where it needed to be, and um, had a picture that she had, and then said, I want you to draw on this piece of paper what you're seeing. Um, and I drew, because what I do is I just close my eyes and I just scribble basically. And if I see sand or um, grass, buildings, trees, anything like that, that's what I write down. And I did three um, just triangulars. And when she held up the picture, it was of the pyramids, and that was basically what I drew on my paper. So
Well
I think
done.
in that whole thing, there was only one other person that did that. But absolutely, I believe in remote viewing. Um, um, I've I've had precognitive um, things that have happened when I've had my precognitive. Um, it's at that as I'm waking up, because I'm in where you would be
Theta.
in a meditation, um, and those things have come true. So when I see things like that, I write it down. I've got to where I write it down. There was one time in particular, I I saw my mother, and she had a mass in her abdomen, and so I called my sister and was like, "Mom has to have a CAT scan." Um, and I started to tell her why. And she's like, "Nope, don't tell me. I'll just make sure it gets done." And sure enough, she did. Um, and so that's just, it's amazing when you have those kind of experiences and they come true. So,
I just want to say I think it's awesome how your whole family has supported one another, been there
hmm
for each other, believed each other with anything that
hmm
you all shared. That's really beautiful.
yeah, yeah. I feel very lucky. And I wish my grandparents all died when they were, uh, I was young. I wished I could talk to them and find out what experiences they had. I do know that especially the female line on my maternal grandmother's side um, is very intuitive. Um, my brother has no experiences, nothing, didn't get any of this, but my sister, my mother, my grandma, um, um, all had that.
How about your kids?
Um, my daughter has experiences. She's a big believer. She started going with me to UFO conferences, and the first one she went to, she was like, "Now I understand why you go to these." Um, and she's very metaphysical as well. Um, my sons don't want to. Um, it, they don't want to.
I get it.
It's a
Yeah,
stigma thing for sure.
Yep.
yeah.
For sure. For sure, man.
But
Oh,
we're both into, you know, crystals. My daughter and I, crystals. I believe in crystals and petting out in the full moon to
Charge them up.
cleanse and um, yeah, I'm a big believer in the metaphysical. That's where I'm at as far as spiritually, is the metaphysical. And I believe out in the ether there's information if we just reach for it, and um, the answers are there.
oh man. What is what are your thoughts about some of these visitors being future a future us? And what are the implications of that?
Um, I mean that's a possibility. I mean, I don't know. Um, I do think that they are researching us, following us. Um, and there's been times that I've felt like we're an experiment. And they're following, I mean, the research shows that they're following generations. Why are they following families? Um, so, um, so I don't know. Um, I think it's very possible.
Yeah, according to Chris Bledsoe, the three-letter organizations have those names. Which I'm curious if those will be released too. I don't know if that would be too much of a security risk for those
Mm-hmm.
families.
Mm-hmm.
Um, are you aware of Chris Bledsoe and some of his interviews and so forth? He's a
Mm-hmm.
pretty interesting guy. Uh, I often think about individuals like you and him, and kind of like with the reason being your guys' stories are a little bit very important
Mm-hmm.
um, because it's firsthand. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's the dad, right? because both of them, him and his son, both had experience. I'm trying to think. Is Chris the dad?
Chris is the dad. Yeah.
Okay. I just watched him on a podcast that he did on the Y Files. I don't know if you've ever watched those,
Yep.
but he's got a new one that he's doing where he's actually doing podcasts, and it's called The Basement Y Files, and he was describing his experience, and forgot where I was going with this. But he was scared at first. He went through the fear, for a few years, and then realized it was a blessing. And if you haven't seen that, I would encourage you to watch that, because I mean he's all about it being positive. He says he does groups where he takes people out, and now he films all these orbs that come in. So yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the more amazing things is people are healed in his presence from different
Yeah.
ailments.
Yeah. He talked about that, and he was with Grant. I forget his name. He lives in Canada, but he talked about his dog, where there was just a big cut in her jugular, and when he went to put his hands on it, and he said that there blood everywhere. And I remember hearing that story years ago, during one of the podcasts. But when he lifted up the rag that he had on his dog, it was completely closed and healed, which
Wow.
the dog should have died. So yeah, he's a big believer that it's a good healing presence that he's been blessed with. Um,
Yes. Um, as time goes on, and you do your investigations and share your story, what do you kind of want your message to be? Just in case you don't ever get to say it outright before now, like what do you want people to engage these kinds of things, or do you just kind of want to like what is your
no,
thesis here?
I want them to engage. I want them to open. I hope they open up their minds, and that's where I think that these Hollywood putting in these documentaries, like the Age of Disclosure, seeing people that's in the government that's coming forward and seeing these things, validates what we're seeing. I'm hoping that they're not doing it so that they can build up the defense budget. But I think the more people like us that have these positive experiences and how they've changed our lives, I think the more that gets out, the more people will come forward and know that they're not alone. And that's my message. I think it was Ben Rich who said, we're not alone. We've never been alone. Um, so that's what I want people to know.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Since we're kind of getting towards the end here, um, I just want to thank you, Deborah, for coming on. This has been an honor. When I first talked about the podcast, you were actually the first person I told Jordan I wanted to interview,
Yep.
and you're actually the first
Thank
person
you.
I messaged. Yeah, there was just but when I first heard your story at Tracy's little meeting, and then we went to go see five, I just felt this beautiful energy, um, and I just knew that down the road that that you needed to share it because there's just something that you just can't. There's just things you can't fake,
Mhm.
And I was like, when I'm watching, I was like, there's nothing fake about how this lady's expressing the story because there's a lot of great actors out there, but you can't maintain that role. You can't be a method actor when it comes to this
I'm
subject.
not an actor
Yeah, I
or
know.
actress.
Like you can't like that was another odd thing is like when it came to initial people, it was like, oh, I don't believe them. It's like who would lie about this anyway? Like who wants this attention? Nobody
Right.
does.
Yeah.
Nobody. That's the strangest thing.
Yeah.
Um well, with that being said, is would you care to share? Would you like to share any contact information for anybody who'd like to get a hold of you for a speech or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, just hit me up on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. Um, um, I mean, my last name is Brashears. So, um, yeah, absolutely. I am willing to talk to anybody or if they have questions over, want to share their experiences. Yeah, any way that I can help, I'm absolutely open to it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I think a lot of you, Jordan, I've only met you once, I think, and I think you all guys are doing a great thing, great service out there. Put this positive messages. So
Thank you
keep
so
up,
much.
keep up
Thank
doing
you.
the good work.
Thank you.
We
Um,
will.
Thank you. Well, to wrap this thing up here, guys, thank you guys for tuning in, listening to us, and watching us. As always, if you guys feel like you have a story you'd like to share, our contact information is down in the description. If you guys are willing to explore and to kind of explore yourself, if you will, with QHHC and SCHH
Thank you.
sessions. Jordan's information is down in the description. If you guys like to help us out in any other way, there's also more information down in the description. With that being said, I'd like to thank you guys again for joining us. You guys have a beautiful evening and good night and God bless.